And I want to thank especially Jared and the panelists for putting this together today. And so let me introduce Jared Cootz from Sociology, and Jared, if you'll introduce the panel in a moment. And their title is Learning Networks, Themed Classes Across the Curriculum. This is very appropriate for us to start with this semester because CAC has always supported curricular experiments of all kinds. And so this is really great to begin this way. So Jared?
Hello everyone. Like Ron said, my name is Jared Cootz. I teach sociology classes. We also have on the panel, go this way, start with the ladies first. Simone Rieck, who teaches English. Brandy Harvey teaches English. Karen Buckman teaches psychology. David Zimmermann teaches English. Stefano Ballesteros, I'm not sure which way. Also is one of our former students we've had. Actually, are you still a current student? Or?
Yeah,
You're taking.
I'm taking 6 months grade break.
So Stefano's actually been involved in quite a few of these courses, even the precursor before it officially became what it started in the spring. And there's actually a picture right there of the food drive we did in the spring. And how many cans of food did we get?
3,377.
You can ask her in the hallway anytime. She can just.
I counted it twice. This mistake.
Which is a lot better than we had before. All right, we can take you through a few things if this will work.
Would you like to look?
How about we turn one of them off, maybe? The front. Oh, thanks. Thanks, Ron.
So where's the spotlight? I can't see.
Can't see. Should everybody see okay? Okay. So the beginning, really this was something that a handful of us started talking about summer of 2011, really, and started in spring of 2012, and started out fairly small, and we were encouraged to grow a little bit larger. So we had started with 13 instructors and 16 sections, and the first learning network that we had, which we called at the time theme blocks, which, as we found out, was very confusing and kind of I don't know, misleading, really, in a lot of ways. Because a lot of people thought you had to take all the classes or several of the classes, and trying to take 13 classes at one time would be kind of hard. So we kind of realized that wasn't really working very well. It wasn't really the point we're trying to get across. But it was across the curriculum. It was several different disciplines. We had biology, computer sciences, English, sociology, psychology, anthropology. Actually, I think 3 sections, 3 different courses in anthropology even. So. It worked really well. Am I missing anything tonight? All right, so we also kind of started, we started doing this and more people got involved, and we started inviting other people and put out a call and try to plan for the fall of 2012, and we added a second learning network, which we, at this point, when you see this, we haven't really changed anything yet. We're still calling it theme block classes. But the idea really was that we were trying to build a sense of community outside of the classes. Learning networks are different than learning communities in that we don't require students to enroll in more than one class. There's not a link between classes. Instead, we were trying to find a way to address the problems we have with our SESI data, which shows that a lot of our students just kind of roll in here, take classes, and get out of here as fast as they can. They don't really get to know their instructors. They don't get to know what else we have to offer. They don't get a sense of feeling any kind of connection to the college, and so we were trying to figure out how to do something about that. And so that was the big push. So everything we've tried to do has been around times when students are already here. So some of the stuff takes place during some of our classes, which means that not all students participate in everything, but we have a lot of options for them. So there's nothing at night, there's nothing on weekends, there's nothing where they have to drive 30 miles away. It's all here, and we're trying to catch them while they're here and get them involved in some of those things. So a lot of things we've done have been things that have already been done in the past. We're trying to actually kind of link arms and work together to try to do a better job. It's like the food drive. Yeah, build that sense of community on the campus as well. So these are some of our older logos, and then we luckily have this young man over here, Stefano, who's been working on some of these other things too. And we have, these are 2 new ones that we have. So we think we're pretty happy with those so far. So if you look at the Latin, anybody speak Latin? Yeah, me either. I took it in high school, but I don't really remember much about it, other than I hated it. But really that consensio transcurriculum, if you go English to Latin, it really means that you're kind of cooperating across the curriculum. If you do it backwards, of course, in Latin, from Latin to English, it says something, it kind of translates in a number of ways, one of which is something like a camping across disciplines or something, which is
Camping across the pond.
Which is what we're going for.
And that's what I was looking for, camping. You know, the weather is definitely conducive to that right now. All right. Works way down there.
Well, when we started doing this, we hadn't done a lot of research, but we are psychologists and professors, and so immediately we wanted to do some research about why we were doing this. And we did do some research about learning communities. Did you know the first learning community was at the University of Wisconsin in 1927? Alexander Meiklejohn? True. The classes last about 6 years, and then they fell apart, but that's okay. But we did research about some of the different kinds of learning communities that we could have. And even Peter Singh, he wrote this book, real famous book about art and practice of the learning organizations, about how we took a lot of the systems theory that we use in companies, and it's come back to colleges now. And we're now doing a lot of learning communities, and they found a lot of really good research about why learning communities are good in business or in colleges. And so we did some research. There's two dimensions of the learning communities. You can look at the membership, how you select the students for the classes, or how they're going to interact. And that's important. This primary membership, do we select them for a certain way, major or whatever, or how they're going to interact, and we're kind of doing both. There's also 5 major learning community models they found, and this is some research from Kellogg, who does a lot of work about learning communities. For example, you could have the linked classes, which is really what we're doing. We're kind of linking them with a common theme. You can have clusters, and with these clusters, they're kind of interesting because you can cluster them by when they're taught, or a theme again, or freshman interest groups, and we've had some of those. Brandy and I have taught some of those. Where you have 3 courses taught with a common theme. Federated groups is one I'd never heard of, and these are kind of when you have a cohort of students that take 3 theme-based courses. They're taught by a master teacher, and the master teacher takes the courses too, which I thought was interesting. And then we can have these coordinated studies, and that's when students participate in full-time active learning in an interdisciplinary way, which is kind of interesting. So the research is good because it tells us that the benefits for students, well, they get better academics. They get better grades when they get to know each other. That cohort effect, we find that the retention rates are better. They tend to stay in the classes if they know each other. They kind of feel a bond there. We find that they get more involved in co-curricular activities. Are we going to show the videos? I can't remember. We interviewed some of our students, and most of my students last year said, I'm not involved in anything at all on campus. I work, I have a family. However, they came to some of our videos. They came and helped with the food drive. They got involved, and I think that helped their retention. Also, we felt that their quality of thinking improved, better understanding of their self and others, and improved bridging of the gap between their social and their academic life. Now, we want to get you all involved. How many of you all have taught any kind of a linked course or team teaching? Okay, I know Ron. Yes, I know. And so, again, we felt that this was a little different than the traditional kinds. Now, what are the benefits for faculty? I think she's going to talk about that. But just to keep you lively, we have brought you some gifts. You have a choice of a spider ring, a skull ring, or a bat wing. So, get involved and take a ring. Okay. I think Simone's next. Oh, I think we're going. Questions at the end?
Okay, I'm going over benefits for the students and faculty, and I think that for me, I can speak for myself, and then I'll talk a little bit for everybody else, because that's, I guess, what we're doing. One of the benefits for me was that I got to talk with my co-faculty. You know, a lot of the times we get so busy with our classes that we're bogged down with course prep. We've got our committees, we've got all of these different things, and when it comes to talking about what we're doing in the classroom, we have just a few opportunities. You know, we had faculty dig, we had things like that where we could talk about strategies, but this gave us something kind of exciting to talk about. We could talk about really creative assignments. we could come up with ways to incorporate this theme, and it was a fun challenge. So one, it kept us on our toes. We had a new kind of theme on which to base our curriculum, which is just exciting and new and different. The other thing was, I don't get to see my students outside of the classroom very often. I'm a faculty sponsor, a lot of us are, of student organizations, but that's a little bit different. My students, I see them in the classroom, I might see them in the hallway every once in a while, and that's it. That's the extent of my connection to them. This allowed me to connect to them in a common way, with a common purpose, whether it be in a film afternoon where we got to talk about things. I know Ron and I teamed up on one of the movies, and get them excited about things. I got to see students that I used to have that lost, they moved on, but I got to see them again because they moved on to somebody else's class, and so I got to make the reconnection. For students, my students showed or told me that doing these outside activities, particularly the food drive, helped them understand their community a little bit better, understand their role in the community. They felt empowered, they felt important, and they also felt like they were helping. So doing the food drive helped them engage, helped them feel invested a little bit. Also, they really enjoy talking to people in other classes and seeing how the other classes go. And this semester, one of my students said, you know what the best prize would be? Let's auction off a dinner with their favorite professor. And what that taught me was that they really like seeing us outside of the classroom. It's something cool. It helps them re-engage. It helps them see us as people. And so this kind of puts us on a level playing ground, right? I mean, we're all in it together. It actually is a community. And I think that that's probably the biggest benefit to both students and faculty, is that sense of community.
I get asked a lot about that picture too. This image is actually from the Centers for Disease Control a few years ago. They released something about preparing for a zombie apocalypse, because if you prepare for that, then you can prepare for any other kind of natural catastrophe or terrorist attack. And actually, about a week ago, I think it was, Homeland Security released something about being prepared for a zombie attack as well, which is kind of funny.
Okay, now I'm going to kind of go off this first. Linda Crow actually came to one of our planning meetings for the first themed block that we were calling it, and said, well, why don't we apply for a mini grant? And so she and, well, a few of us got together and we put together a proposal for this mini grant. And through the mini grant, we were able to purchase texts for the group, shared films. A lot of people put in requests for books that they would like to share with their students. Those shared movie afternoons, they were funded from that. We were also able to buy t-shirts, and these t-shirts, which we have kind of hanging around the room, these t-shirts ended up being a really cool thing. They were designed by our faculty. I know the blue one was designed by actually Jared. And we had fun designing them, first of all, but then our students really loved wearing them. So we used them as a marketing tool whenever we were doing the Register Back or the Avoid the Stampede event. We used it for marketing. And then everybody in the spring who participated in a learning community class got a t-shirt for participating. And it was almost like a, here's your prize for surviving the zombie apocalypse kind of thing. And they loved it. They wore them, and you can see them all over the campus this semester. You'll see them in their learning community or fall classes or t-shirts, and it's really exciting. The classes, syllabi, and the SLOs. One of the things that we decided to do was, for this to be really successful, we wanted to show how we were meeting the student learning outcomes. We all know that this is a really important hot topic on campus. And so as a group, we selected a couple of the core outcomes from the state, and we kind of chose a couple of our student learning outcomes. And then as a group, we each selected one assignment to show how we fulfilled that core outcome. So we actually have measurable data of how these classes are meeting the requirements for the classes. They're getting the academic requirements, they're getting the challenges, and we're measuring that. Other activities, we did a food drive, which was spearheaded by Karen.
Coming up.
Oh, is it coming up? Oh, sorry. Oh, that's you. Okay, you're on that, sorry.
Okay. One of the student learning outcomes has to do with responsibility. So we looked at our service learning activities and we encouraged our students to get involved. Beyond getting involved with the canned food drive and the organ donation drive and the blood drive, the students make connections within our themed blocks. The fear and horror of being without food, the fear and horror of needing an organ. And with the future themes this semester, you can continue to make these connections. So the students are getting involved with their community, thinking really carefully about how they are impacting the world around them or not, and thinking also about fears and horrors in the future, and making, critical thinking kinds of connections that they wouldn't have. They wouldn't say, oh, there's a canned food drive, I should bring a can of beans and donate it to someone who needs it. But by thinking about them in the context of these classes, we're really hitting these learning outcomes in a way that we weren't doing before. And I think the students are absolutely benefiting from this.
Continuing our research, one of the things I did extensive research about was jokes. I like humor. So it's now time for the audience participation. Who knows what you get when you cross a vampire with a teacher? Lots of blood tests. Okay. What did the zombie say to his college professor date? I like a woman with brains. Okay. One more, just because I know you're enjoying these. What is a zombie's favorite shampoo? Head and Shoulders. Yes, okay, good. All right, so anyway, what we were looking for service activity that everyone could do, and a food drive is always good, and so we did this, but I didn't really know what I was doing, I'll be honest. Never really done a food drive before. We actually had 2 themes. For our themed classes, we used this, and the students came up with this, it's not me. Give from the heart, give an arm, give a leg, or die. And a lot of us gave credit for our students if they would bring a can. And then for the regular college classes, we used Get Your Can to Class, which I just thought of. And I think it was good. It kind of made several organizations come together in several classes. We had some competitions. Joe Garza in radiation therapy, he had his first year people had a contest with the second year. Whoever won, if the second year won, they got to pick the color of the scrubs of the first year people. And there was lots of talk about hot pink. And then if the first year won, they got to do something for the second year people. But it was the second year who won, and they did get the scrub color. Tim Cowan challenged his classes. They had a competition between his classes, who could bring the most cans, and it was kind of fun. So anyway, this was a good way for us to kind of get all the classes together in a joint unit kind of thing, less isolating. But again, I will admit I didn't know what I was doing. The lady at the food drive, at the Montgomery County Food Bank, had suggested that you have kind of a finale thing, that you make a can sculpture. You remember? No. Well, I didn't know what to do, and she suggested when you get all the cans, then you have the people decide. I printed some out from these can sculpture sites, and these are like architecture firms that make dolphins with blue cans, and I was just real fancy. So the students looked at these and they were like, let's see. We've got 500 packets of ramen noodles, which Site Club bought, and we didn't know what to do. But somebody up on the stop, they said, hey, what about the star? So we made that star, and it was fabulous. We did count the cans twice. That was a mistake. But we did make this sculpture at the end. It was really kind of fun. But I think it did not only get the classes organized, linked, but it also gets some of the clubs organized, which is really difficult. So that was kind of fun. So that was the food drive. We're doing it again this year, so watch for that. Watch.
That ties into the activities. The first semester we did this, one of the things we talked about was having a faculty member speak after the movie afternoons. We have 4 movie afternoons this semester. And we talked about having a faculty member stand up and talk about it. This semester we've tried something new. Stefano's group, the Horror Film Club, right? Got the name right?
The Horror Picture Show.
Should be the Horror Film Club. But anyway, the Horror Picture Show is sponsoring the movies or hosting the movies. So the level of student activity, participation in these activities, it's not simply a matter of them participating, it's them seeing a way in which they can lay ownership, claim to the activity and integrate it across their curriculum. They don't have to be in an English class to go to the movie. They don't have to be in a biology class, or God save them, in an accounting class to go to the camp food drive. Oh, sorry, Pat. The point one of the things we've discovered in the various activities is some are more successful than others, that's a given, but how they integrate the students and give the students a voice of authority in the fields that we're addressing, in the courses we're addressing.
We let them pick the fourth movie, which was so
I
interesting.
forgot about that. And we're doing it again this semester. They have the last movie they choose, student's choice.
I thought they would stampede out the door. They had sat there for 2 hours. We showed, the movie I did was No Country for Old Men, is that it? So at the end, I thought they would just be stampede. They didn't. They wanted to discuss it. It was amazing. I mean, 1 or 2 left. But I'm talking 60 or 70 students sitting there talking about this movie. It was unreal.
3 to 5 o'clock, and Jared touched on this earlier, 3 to 5 o'clock on a Wednesday is what it is this semester, right? 3 to 5 or 2 to 5?
2:35.
2:30 to 5. We had 53 students with us at this time for, I can't even remember.
Second week class.
12 monkeys.
We're seeing the students engage in the movies, they engage in activities on campus, giving the campus a life of its own, an identity of its own. One of my students is writing a paper for my class, Comp 2, they read Sun Zoo. So his paper is 12 Monkeys in a Zoo. They're seeing connections beyond our abilities.
Yes. I think it's huge.
But, I mean, we had a lot of other activities and some of our, like the cram sessions, picture there up on the left, and then our guest speaker is down here. So use the magical laser. It's down here on the right. We have Paulette Norman came and talked about her son who was abducted by a next door neighbor.
And we had 85 people attend that.
She gave them all a free book.
And they all got a free book. Yeah.
A lot of my students thought they were most moved by that. They liked her talk the most, although it was quite moving.
But we also learned from the cram sessions that there's certain things that we can't pull off very easily. So the cram sessions, for instance, we had high hopes of appealing to developmental education students and having our students kind of serve as tutors and things like that. And it was really difficult to promote in a timely manner. And so we learned some lessons for that, which we'll talk about later. But the cram session we had I know a couple of Ron's students, a couple of mine, a couple of Brandy's. There were about 8 to 10 of our students come to volunteer to tutor, but we didn't have a lot of students come in for the tutoring. And so we learned some lessons that we're hoping to build upon for this time.
And we had 4 instructors that volunteered to do pre-test and post-test using Lassie, which they put that up there too, which is actually, there's something that I believe the SAT tried to take on a few years ago and spent tens of thousands of dollars trying to disprove them, and found out they were wrong, that it really can't be a good predictor of success. There's several different factors in there too. What we found when we did this, and I have a more friendly to slide on the next page. This really looks at the pre-test and post-test. And what we found is that like anxiety levels change, pre-test and post-test. And actually when you go up like this for some of these categories, actually an improvement, okay? Which is kind of counterintuitive for a lot of us who we like to go 0 to 100, and 100's good, 0's bad, that kind of thing. So we have attitude, concentration, information processing, motivation, self-testing, selecting the main idea, study aids. It's actually using study aids, time management, and then test strategies. And if you look at this next one, it's just some highlights from that. We saw students improving across the board. This is for 4 instructors. So overall anxiety dropped by 10.96 points, which we weren't really expecting that at all. The concentration improved by 9.75 points. Their motivation increased by 7.1 points. Selecting the main idea increased by 12.85 points. Their time management increased a little bit, 5.49 points. And their test strategies increased by almost 10 points.
All statistically significant.
They are.
All above the norm.
They are.
It's
So really, it wasn't something we expected to see at all. We thought, we had no idea what we would see with the Lassie data. Mostly because it's, we had sociology 1301, English 1302, we had computer information systems, and a biology class. So we had 4 completely different, one of them is workforce, and 3 that are academic courses. So we had no idea what we would get from it. But that wasn't really, we're still trying to figure out exactly what that means for us, because actually looking at the last data results, you can get information, but trying to actually figure out exactly what you did to influence it can be tough too, which is always tough when you're trying to understand an instrument as well. So we haven't decided what we're going to do this year. We're also doing this semester. There are 4 of us that are doing pre-test and post-test, and we're going to look at the 2, and then we might actually see if we can bring somebody in to help us figure out exactly what is going on if we get similar results, or if we get different results too. But something that's a lot easier to look at, something I know that's not so much fun to talk about, but at least for some of us. I just pulled these numbers out the other day for Simone's class and mine, because I had no idea what they would be. I wanted to see what they would say, because this is something that you're hearing more about too. You're hearing more about success rates and completion rates, and more so now completion rates as opposed to success rates. And as fact members were being asked to really not track students, at least until after the 12th roll day, and kind of figure out if we can kind of try to figure out ways to keep our students in the class and help them stay in the class as opposed to dropping it. So what we found, these are both sections that were of the 16 sections in the spring that were part of this fear and horror group. And if you look at the numbers, completion from enrolled, okay? When we do this over success comes out of, the way the system looks at this, success comes out of the numbers of students who have completed. So it's not based on the original enrollment number, okay? And I know math people may disagree with that, but this is statistically how the system looks at this. So if you look at that, this is for Simone's class, this is for English at Lone Star College-Montgomery, and English across the whole system, all 1302s. So her success rate was really good. Obviously, her completion rate was also good. My class, and then Lone Star College-Montgomery, and then LSCS, success rates, mine are higher than theirs, and a little bit better for completion rate as well. So that's just 2 sections. We're not saying that it means necessarily this made that happen, but it looks like it could be the case. So I've talked to a couple of other people today to see if we can actually get some more instructors that would like to look at this, because it's optional and it's not required, but it's just kind of interesting. It gives kind of a leg to stand on if we're trying to say we think this is a good idea or something that's important.
Go crazy, whatever crazy. One more,
So problems with theme classes, recruiting, it's kind of hard. Because y'all know when you're asked to build your descending what you want to teach, sometimes 9 or 10 months ahead of time. So somebody may not even know about this, and then we have to kind of go back in. It may not be in the printed schedule, which isn't as big of a deal now as say it was 5 or 10 years ago.
We may not have a printed schedule fairly soon. It's going away completely.
That would help with some of the confusion maybe and cost. But, that's a problem. Recruiting really it was at first because people thought maybe this was some kind of crazy thing. We weren't really going to have any kind of academic rigor, which is really not the case at all.
Are the students going to be afraid in that fear and horror class? Yeah. Someone actually asked me, some advisors asked me, are they going to be afraid taking this class? I'm like,
Until they did their first paper back. The other thing we had to emphasize was that it doesn't take up the whole class. If you have a class, we were talking about this yesterday, you have one assignment that fits. The goal is to get the students involved in the community of the college and develop the community of the college. Because back to Jared's points about his class and Simone's, we talk about students needing to engage in their education. This is doing it in a systematic, thorough way throughout the course of the semester. Rather than talking about it, students are actually engaging in a variety of ways that they may not even be aware of. But it's not important that they're aware of it. They're simply doing it and learning the process of doing it.
We've also learned that a lot of these problems like marketing and recruiting and the academic issues have been much different for the fall. Students who have gone through the Learning Network have promoted them because they enjoyed them. And so, whereas in the spring we had a couple people saying, well, that looks like a blow-off class, what is that? We had a lot of students emailing us, is this going to satisfy my English 1302 requirement? Is this going to is this the same as a different sociology 1301? What's it going to show up like on my transcript? That kind of thing. They had those concerns. And so a lot of those concerns have been alleviated for the second time.
And we did get great support from our deans and from the whole system. Everybody was very supportive. That really makes a big difference. You know how hard it is in a bureaucracy to get support, but we had that. I think it was hardest to tell our advisors what we were doing to kind of get them through the idea. They kept wanting us to link the classes. Do they have to be in all 13? Of course, we no. So that was kind of those issues.
You saw a preview of some of the great work that came out of Zimmermann's class, but students really engaged with the excitement of having these themes. I taught an urban legends class, and I challenged my students to cast their classmates in an urban legend and to promote the urban legend to a film company or TLC or to a book publisher. And they came up with some really, really interesting ideas. I had one create a theme park around an urban legend. And so I'm building upon that assignment to extend the time within the semester when they can work on it, because they really became engaged. It was in English 1301, so they were creating arguments and adhering to the outcomes of the course, but having a great time being creative in the process of doing it.
The sense among community that develops among the faculty helps. Sitting there and talking and hearing, sharing assignments gives you insights. I came up with the idea of a bestiary based on something I'd seen Jared do, based on Brandy's idea of the urban legend. When you hear the other faculty willing to take chances, you're taking chances with a group of people rather than by yourself. The students are invested, they have opportunities, they have assignments to cover that they can incorporate outside of the class readings. The films, for example, back to me, having students tie Seneca or Sun Tzu to the movie 12 Monkeys. It provided me with a great deal of independence in developing, creating my assignments. So mine was very vague. I told them I wanted a bestiary. I showed them a couple of, I gave them an idea of what bestiaries looked like, talked about it briefly. The goal was to get them to read across, basically comparative literature, look at a multitude of literary pieces from different cultures, and form some sort of unifying thought.
Rick Manny taught an anthropology class. He took them to meet with a priest and he talked to them about exorcisms. I guess the students still haven't stopped talking about that. They did a lot of interesting work on that.
And that's actually a really good point, because a lot of our adjunct instructors have asked to be a part of this, and they've come up with outside activities in addition to what we come up with as a group, and we can promote those. Michelle Branch in criminal justice is part of it, and she was encouraging people to attend her crime scene workshops and things like that as part of the Fear and Horror. In fact, she knew Paulette Norman Everett from the guest speaker, and so she really helped facilitate that. And so we've been networking and communicating across the board with other faculty.
One of the problems with our adjuncts, they often feel isolated. They come and they teach their classes, they feel so isolated. When we can incorporate them into this, they really blossom, I think. I feel like they felt like more a part of the college.
And there's a little bit more security for them to take chances. Back to Richard Manny is using a voodoo doll this semester in his anthropology class. He has them trying to zap various football teams throughout the course of the season.
He is real creative. Very creative.
So by sharing, there's an encouragement, an indirect encouragement with, as full-time faculty, we enjoy a certain stability that we can impart to the adjuncts through the conversations that they can hear. Try this, take this chance, because the department is not frowning on it, they're encouraging it.
Stefano, would you like to hear what a student thinks?
That survived.
Yeah.
He survived, yes.
Survived Dr. Zimmermann's World Lit class last semester, and the one we worked with the bestiary. And before that, they mentioned before the class that ended up turning into these learning networks. I took Professor Cootz and Dr. Zimmermann's joint class. It was a sociology English class that had a very strong science fiction theme about it. It was not official or anything, but everything was, it was kind of like the beta test, if you will, to what ended up becoming this. So we were working with certain movies, and everything was in class. We didn't have the advantage of kind of going outside the classroom. and going to these events or watching the movies or doing that. But it actually gave us a lot of work in which the students could just relate everything that was part of the class curriculum. It was still very true to what it was required for the class. But at the same time, we got the chance to link that to things that we were actually interested in. I remember when I registered for the class, they warned me. It kind of felt like a warning. No, not for Dr. Zimmermann, but
Yeah, sure.
They told me, this class is going to be based on science fiction, which of course I said, awesome, sign me in. That was like a huge plus to it, and I ended up taking Professor Cootz's class because of that. So this is the project that came for that. This is an overview of one of the movies we saw in class. It was Batman Begins, and it's just a whole overview of the class, basing it to the movie. So can you scroll down? So everything throughout the film, and that's the reason why Professor Cootz chose that film. You can see a lot of sociological aspects that were covered in what we were seeing in class. So the point of this assignment was to translate everything that we saw in class, or most of the things we saw in class, into one of the films. So I chose Batman, and as you can see, I kind of gave it the comic book aspect of it. So that's integrating screen captures from the film with a comic book to create the whole panel of kind of integrating it to the project. The great advantage that I can see as a student in this is that not only you are giving us the tools to go beyond what we're seeing in class every day, but you're also giving us a chance to be creative about it, to really put our own personality and our own what we like into it. So, of course, I'm a big Batman fan. I've worked previously with graphic design and stuff like that. So I got a chance to incorporate my personal experience, the things that I like, into what I was learning. And of course, that enhanced my learning experience so much. And that was for Professor Cootz's class. I also brought what we worked on for Dr. Zimmermann's World Lit class. That's the history that was mentioned. As he said before, he was very vague about it. The idea was to see what each group of students could come up with, kind of just allowing for those creative freedoms, but at the same time we stayed true to what we were seeing. Throughout the class we examined different works of different cultures. We went from everything to Gilgamesh, the Odyssey, all the way up to Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, the Quiet and the could you just go to View and hit, there's an option under the View tab that says Page Display to,
Single page.
no, just hit 2 up or something like that. 2 pages.
2 pages.
Yes.
Page scrolling, okay.
Page. And then, okay, there's another option, I'm sorry about this. Go again to Page View, and there should be one that says Show Cover Page. There you go.
Oh.
Yes, thanks. So we worked as a team for this assignment, and we decided to do a magazine in which we would be reporting on monsters that we read in through the class, but giving them the twist that what's going on with these monsters now. So we involved a little bit of creative writing in the whole project, as we can explain. All right, so now suppose these monsters are living here with us. What are they doing now? So how we based that was that we researched our own secondary sources as modern works, contemporary works, such as movies, TV, comic books, actual books, for example, the Zombie Survival Guide. And what we did is that we made the relation with how were they portrayed in ancient times, and how do we see them now? And from that, what conclusions can we see from those same creatures that keep up coming up in culture throughout history? Is there anything you
No, and what my goal was, I had 10 points, the archetypal criticism, I'm dated. I wanted them to see the patterns. I wanted them to find the patterns and find a way to express the patterns. And this work was studied. It's one of those that when the students produce it, you would like to take credit, but you can't. I simply wanted the students to go through and see on their own, recognize a certain pattern across literatures. One group did the X-Men files sort of thing. They came in and they had files, government secret files on all the monsters. One group did paranormal, a film where they were tracking the monsters and the camera was shaking. The purpose was to build a community that could look at these pieces of literature from a multitude of views and come up with a unified vision and a commentary on the literature that was meaningful and supported by, and Stefano and I are talking about taking this to the next step for an honors project, provide an academic, scholarly framework for it. So they produced bibliographies, they produced annotated bibliographies that go with this.
If you look at Bloom's taxonomy, the top of Bloom's taxonomy is creating. How often do you get your students to get past the lower levels up to analyzing, which they did, up to actually creating? It's just exciting. It's just exciting.
And well, now that you mentioned what we plan to do with this, I think that from a student's point of view, I've taken normal classes, regular classes, and I've done honors projects, and I've worked on these learning networks, and this is as close as you will get as a student on working for what would be the quality of an honors project without being an honors class or without doing an honors contract. So it really pushes students to kind of go that step, above that step, kind of not just sit with what they're expected to do and just go a little bit beyond that.
Your group struggled with that. Remember that? There were some of your group that were uncertain about the vagueness of it.
Yeah, there's throughout the semester, and this assignment was just given to us from day one. So we struggled with how we were going to go about and do it. There were several things we had in mind. We talked about short film, we talked about a Facebook page, but we had our complications through it, and some of them, one of our team members dropped out of the class, and actually by the end, 2 of our members, 2 out of 5, dropped out of the class.
That's always a good thing for me. Go ahead.
But those that endure, Dr. Zimmermann, we kind of struggled with the vagueness of it in part, but at the same time, once we learned kind of to embrace that liberty that it gave us, we really came up with something that was very enriching. As a student, I can say that that project really gave me the chance to kind of put myself into it, while giving me that mastery of the things that we learn in class. As Dr. Zimmermann mentioned, we talked about the archetypes that present themselves throughout history. So once you do something beyond, just reporting on them on an essay, and you actually have to do some critical thinking, use some critical thinking skills to see, okay, why do they keep coming up, and how can I connect this in a very creative framework? That's when, as a student, you really get that edge in it, and things really stick in your head, and you can afterwards just present it as somewhat of an expert on the subject.
So if you'd like to have a classroom filled with students like this,
They're all like that.
they're all like that.
So, what's new? We have a new name of the learning networks. Theme classes. We have a fear and horror learning network, futuristic learning network, and we're talking about adding maybe something else. Heroes and villains, gender, health. Maybe classes that are friendly for our veterans who are returning from Afghanistan or Iraq.
And that last one's an interesting permutation because it's a slight shift from subject matter or content matter to right.
So, and we'd love to have questions and comments.
I do have more zombie jokes.
So questions.
There's a
please.
question. Oh,
I have a couple of questions. One is, I wondered, about comparisons to other classes of yours. I mean, we have to teach so many different classes. You may not have had the opportunity to teach the same course that's not in the block. So I thought it would be interesting if you have that opportunity to do a comparison, kind of like a control group, to see if there's a difference. I guess the closest you could come to that would be really just to compare it to another year or another semester, but that would only be retention data or something like that.
One of the things that I've seen happen, and it kind of happens with our theme 1302 classes, but you get a student or two like Stefano in class or like Ed Wright, get a couple of students in the class who are ignited, and that can spread. And if you don't have anyone, then when they go to the film or when they go to the CAN drive, if you can get one or two going, we all know this from a classroom, if you can get 3 or 4 students engaged in a classroom, it begins to spread. It's viral. The flip side, of course, is true. In fact, Jared and I right now are struggling with our class. It was a class that got a lot of late registrations, which shapes the nature of the class in a way that's kind of frustrating at points. We're trying to find out how to get that traction. We're hoping the network can provide it with that traction.
I think also the ones who aren't ignited become a little more curious because they see things coming up on the syllabus and it's not the normal assignment that they're accustomed to seeing. So they might stick around a little longer just to see what it's all about. And just that sense of community.
And let's also not forget that, when the teacher's really enthusiastic and excited about the subject matter, that's often contagious. So if you're excited and you're doing something that's more fun for you, your students are going to perceive that.
Vivian, do you think we need the comparison, the way that Jared did it, like we did with the Lassies? That would be pretty easy for us to do. We have not done that. We don't have a lot of history here, but we could, right? You just did it with the 2 classes. And she wants to compare it to classes that aren't in the network. Those are, I know, but she wants to compare.
Well, I'm suggesting, like, if I taught 2 1302s, for instance, one was in the network and one was not. That's all.
Like you compare it with.
One of the things I saw that happened in our class in the 1302 that was science fiction is about halfway through the semester we were talking about a breakdown of the subgenres of science fiction. One student, good student, he was doing very well in the class, rolled his eyes and said, "This is just a waste of time. We're just coming up with terms to come up with terms." That kind of anti-intellectualism we hear off and on, right? The students who were engaged in the science fiction, they developed their community through the discussions, they developed the community through the film, sociology and English, were excited about the notion of identifying what constitutes steampunk, what constitutes whale-punk was one of them or something?
Yeah.
And so that actually transformed. I mean, at first it was almost a snide comment on the part of the student, but it became the final product. It became the final project for the class, right? I had the 2 groups produce some sort of project, some kind of guide for different types of subgenres of science fiction. Stefano's group did a movie poster of a movie festival. Here are the different films going on at the same time. The other group did kind of like a chart. Here's a flow of the different types of alternative fiction. So what helps is the tone. The students can really, this helps set the tone.
Yeah, but you didn't just do that though. You also had them spend 15, 20 minutes explaining it as a group to you too, and that's a big part that I would.
And that they jumped in as a group.
Got a video of it. That was awesome. Yeah, and then the second or third group was talking, and then the first 2 groups start jumping in and helping explain it and picking, which is like the most interesting thing I've ever seen.
Overall,
it's a community.
Yeah, it gave us as students kind of a mastery on science fiction. So it might not be directly related to the class, the subject matter of the class, but in a way it gives us the skill to analyze and categorize fiction or writing and be able to pick it apart and understand it at a higher level.
And the subject matter of the class, and I told you this, the subject matter of the class is developing an authoritative voice, right? Composition 2, at the heart of Composition 2 is the notion that you develop an authoritative voice so that our students can write authoritatively, professionally. And that was something I was working towards and I heard emerge at the end of the class in these discussions, was that sense of authority.
Deborah, you had a question.
Yeah, since you all have been working on this and gotten together as a community yourselves as faculty, has it changed the way you taught from the way you taught 4 years ago, no matter what class you're teaching?
It has me. I mean, that absolutely. I found some assignments that I did for this themed class that I had so much fun with, my students responded to, that I've changed the way I do assignments in other classes. I've added more outside activities to my other classes. I have a lot more response assignments where they have to talk about their experiences and they have to really use those in a constructive way. And so I can say yes, I mean enthusiasm, absolutely.
I'm teaching a 1302 future themed class right now, and the subtitle, I guess, is Outside the Box. So I'm having to let go of some of the constraints of give me a 5-paragraph argumentative essay and rethink what kind of writing might be relevant in the future. And I've had students say, you're not going to give us a 5-paragraph essay, are you? This is an outside the box class. And so they are challenging me to think outside my box if I expect them to. So I'm currently in the, I always try to find a theme for my courses and have enthusiasm, but now they're challenging me the way I'm challenged to them, which is going to be interesting.
I taught the class general psych the first time. This time I have development because somebody else wanted to teach general. And I have 5 students that were in my class before that took this class and said, are you going to keep talking about fear? I had them the first time survey people and get a bunch of different fears. And then they had to write about some of their own personal fears, you know, but they had to do a poster and stuff. And so this class, I'm talking about how it affects your development. And so these students are so excited because they're going to go on from what they learn. And in general, I spent a lot of time talking about the therapy, how we fight fears and how we fight phobias and how we do a lot of therapy. So they want to know about how it affects their development. And so they're taking the second part of psych and going on with it. I don't know that I've changed how I teach, but it's a change my approach is different. How I view it is different. Any comments?
Yes.
It's a good question.
Yeah, it's changed. I've always done strange things in class, but I haven't added that service learning part in school recently, and now it's hard to, even though this is still young, it's kind of hard to think of not having anything like that. And like Karen, I changed what I was teaching in 1301 in the spring, now it's 1306 in the fall, but then I also picked up an online class from adjuncts and made it into our first learning network class. It's a fear and horror. It's a zombie apocalypse class, 1301. And it went from 7 people when I had to rearrange things for someone to I just put my name on it because I wasn't sure what I was going to do, and it had 3 days later it had 31 people in it. So it was like, oh my gosh. So
he immerses. Some people just do like one assignment. I know Kitty Grunman had one day that she spent a lot about talking about death. And she said like that one day was her big day. Jared did it every single day. Did you know how he did this? Tell about the zombie thing. He had someone sit at the door. Go ahead.
We have a hot seat, so the door's closed in the classroom, and that person's responsible for opening the door, making sure the person's not a zombie, or in my futuristic class, an alien for the man.
Yeah.
Nothing bizarre.
And they love it. I had to be the guards keeper one day. Okay, keep going.
Oh,
they got like it.
We pretend like it's happening, but it hasn't happened here yet, so that's why we're still at school. So while we're there, I have a whole thing in my syllabus about being responsible, not being a zombie, or not being alien to our ways, but just not breaking laws. But let's just be conscious of the fact that we're just pretending. So, but yeah, we do pretend like it's actually happening, and that we're actually doing other things while this is going on. But that's also why we're doing the assignments we're doing, because it might come in handy tomorrow. So, yeah, immersion a little bit.
It's immersion. Has it changed your teaching?
Yeah. If you have, like, say, 1301, and you have 2 or 3 sections, are they all the theme or just one of them? How does it work?
It's up to the instructor.
Oh, okay, but most of the time there's an option to
We've
not.
had, I think most we've had anybody do was like 2 of one.
Matt and Rick did
Yeah, but
3.
those are 3 different courses.
Oh, they were 3. They were physical cultural.
So I think most we've had is anybody do 2 different sections of one course, I think.
I'd like to ask a
I
question.
wanted to see how it went first. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's what I was.
Following up on Dave's question, in terms of your own development, in interactions with your peers, I mean, you guys are all office near each other, at least the 5 of you do, so you can have these kind of casual conversations. How much has that played a role in your growth as a professional, do you think?
I don't know, I kind of enjoy talking to Pat about it, and Joe. a lot. Although I don't get to talk to Joe very much. It seems like every time I talk to Joe, somebody else wants to talk to him. He's a very popular guy. So I get like 2 or 3 minutes. But that, I don't know, it's kind of, part of that was happenstance, I guess, Vivian. Because that happens, you stand in the hallway and talk to someone, or you keep seeing them every day. But the thing I'm most interested in is like what Chase Waits is doing right now, because we really wanted to get the theater in.
It has
and rock
created
cars.
opportunities
It's
to
gonna be
talk
doing that.
across the campus and meet instructors and get to know what's happening in their classroom that we wouldn't have known at all otherwise, and make connections that maybe you thought about before but hadn't really had a chance.
You start talking to somebody about it, and they start telling you, yeah, Metropolis was an awesome film.
Yeah, here's some ideas.
It's like, yeah.
And when we were delivering those T-shirts, for instance, we thought Jared and I were delivering T-shirts across campus for promotion, and also because all of the faculty who were participating got the T-shirts also. And delivering T-shirts would have normally just been a here, throw it in your box kind of thing, but it turned into a 2.5-hour tour of campus, which wouldn't have happened previously. And so we got to talk about the classes. They wanted to know what was new. They wanted to know what was going on. You know, the deans all over campus were wanting to know more about it so that they could promote it in their divisions, and being invited to visit division meetings and all kinds of things.
Suggesting faculty to talk to.
Yeah, the drama department, they asked us to come down and talk to or all of us actually. They both wanted to talk to us, and they wanted to ask all kinds of questions and make recommendations, and so that was really exciting too.
Because you can be on a committee with people, and it's a different kind of interaction when you get to talk about your work. Isn't that what you're asking? Yeah. So, like Joe, he came, I have to tell this, to one of our meetings last year, and he's like, I just don't know how to incorporate it into my classes. 5 minutes, I'd say 5 minutes later, we kind of shared some assignments. He goes, well, you know what? Tell what you're doing, Joe.
Yeah.
The dinosaur.
The name of the course is Perfect People and Pet Dinosaurs, which is a group of people who are trying to sort of reverse engineer chickens to get the characteristics of dinosaurs. So we talk a lot about that and the biotechnology aspect of it, and gene manipulation, and a lot of it ties into the movies here, which you guys have been shown. The last one, Launched 12 Monkeys, is really about a man-made virus. We talk about viruses and how to modify DNA and things like that. So when we get to those points, we can talk more about it.
See, he acted real clueless. I can't see how I can do it in my class. And then I mean it 5 minutes later, he goes, well, you know, I can do this and I can do that. And now he has all these ideas about it. And it's given it a little spin, hasn't it? Because like I've taught general psych over 100 times. This has given it a nice spin.
You know, like you guys, I've taught the class. Biology 1406 is what I'm doing again. Last year I taught it 9 times.
Yeah.
I'm tired of the same material over and over myself, so it's nice that I get to change it up. It's new for me, and I can put that little twist on it and take it in a little bit different direction, which makes it more interesting for myself. I feel more connected. The students feel like, oh yeah, he's really excited about it. We're just not talking about doing Punnett squares here again.
Oh, really?
So it's refreshing.
One of the things that we got an email this week was from Central Office about Innovation Abstract that NISOT puts out, and you have a rough draft of any kind of an article, but I'm thinking about some of the people who maybe aren't here, but they've, in their own fields, they've really grown professionally, and their students have grown. It would be a great topic for a submission into something like that.
Planning, we really are. We're trying to get some, we did a few conventions this year, and I think the writing is next. And really, we almost had to see how it went. I mean, we had to kind of see how it went before we could really write it.
Like, is there a biology for two-year college teachers organization? I don't know. There is for English.
What was that?
Is there a professional organization for two-year college biology instructors?
Like Linda Crow was president.
Society for Science College Teachers is out there, and that's 2 for.
So do they publish things like this? How it's?
Yeah, they do have publications. Yeah.
You talk about your teaching.
Okay. Yeah, but they do like that data. That
okay.
Part of sort of data as well.
Yeah.
That was one of my questions I was going to ask, and sorry it's boring. You guys are asking really great questions. I'm going to ask a boring question because it's going to be about the data. In your LSC, is that what it is? How did you assess motivation, time management? How does that assess those sort of?
There are 80-something questions, and the students, it's an inventory like we use.
Self-reporting. Okay.
It's a self-report.
So I mean, you always have that, you know, were they hungry, tired, upset, angry,
Right.
irritated, all that stuff that goes into it. But I mean, there's enough items that it seems to account for all of that, and then doing post-test to see what's going to change. So yeah, it takes about 25, 30 minutes, something like that. We have computers that can take it out. So it's all online. It does it automatically for us. Ron, do you have anything you want to say about your fairy tales?
Well, I'm part of the group, I teach fairy tales and folklore, but I've been teaching a night class. But very encouraging this semester. I didn't think that many of the students would be able to participate, but there was a lot of interest in volunteering in some of the events, and at least one I know went to the first movie. And so they are very hungry to connect, even if they're teaching at night. I mean, studying at night. So I'm very hopeful that you'll be even more successful than last.
I have a question about the you said this is the first time you're doing an online class. That's going to affect sometimes the people that are going to come and do the events. Is that going to be like different values in your
Way I did my
syllabus and
class,
stuff?
yeah, that one they have a few other options to do because they're online. Some of them are even on state.
Yeah, that was
Almost
my
all of them are. There's
thought.
a few that aren't, so they can pick what they want to do. They have some other options to do. So, but I try to give them those options in my face-to-face class anyway. Like, for example, the food drive, we have it during the day. So actually, it's like going to be one of the days we're doing it. The class is going to go over and take food and box up for a walk during class time. So they get points for that, and they have to pay for another thing. There's like 7 things they can pay. So they get to pay from a lot of things.
In my classes, they actually get to nominate or recommend outside activities. So we give them a list that we're sponsoring, and then they can recommend, and I will promote their recommendations in class. They have to write reports in my class.
The corn maze. They can do the corn maze.
Yeah.
They can go to the funeral museum.
Yeah, or go, the Tuds is doing Jekyll and Hyde in October.
Just because a lot of times the online classes, they're not around here.
Well, and the film afternoons, you know, we get, we save money by it being for students who are in classes, so we don't have to pay the copyright that we would normally have to do. And so if they have kids or something and they can't stay after, then we give them other options so that they can take their kids. So going to Jekyll and Hyde, or the Theater Under the Stars is a family thing, they can still get credit.
I have a question. Do you think the students are self-selecting, as in the ones that signed up? Do you think they are, like, you have an honors course, and of course that's sort of self-selecting in some way. Are these like perhaps motivationally or emotionally or some other way selectively?
But like with Joe's, so a lot of them are, but I was
Right.
looking at, I'm sorry Joe, but I was looking at, we had a pre-test, post-test, basically just, why are you taking the class, a few questions like that. And I think you had 1 or 2 that they knew, maybe I'm wrong, but most of your class had no idea that it was anything.
Yeah, the first day I went in, I asked them, I said, you guys realize this is a theme block class, it's a futuristic class, and they went, nope. And I teach the same class at 11 to 2. So I went in there, and I want to keep it consistent, really, between classes, so I was going to allow them to do some of the extra credit stuff as well, so I could get it. And one of the students said, this isn't a theme block class, but your other one is. Can I transfer over to that one? And I said, sure, no problem. As long as the dean says all right, we can get you over there. And I think that's really the only person that came in.
Most of them don't know when they're signing up.
Most of them do not.
Yours has more of a...
So the advertising, recruiting students is kind of a little bit, and some of them know. I mean, my 1306, all of them know. But I also see, I mean, it's got to be like 7 or 8 students that have students I knew from the spring and still talk to that are walking them to this class, which is a different class, and saying, have fun, and so it's kind of strange that they're in there.
So that makes me wonder, do you have students in there that this is kind of their first experience with, learning that's just that engaging and that personal, and do you see that affect their they're thinking about moving on, you know, their excitement about moving on to the 4-year, or even thinking more about moving to 4-year if they weren't already?
I don't know, but
Or just getting excited about, you know, the future of their learning.
What I
beyond
see
that
for
class.
sure know, I can for sure tell you is I'm seeing students that didn't know each other that were in my class that I see hanging out still now, right? I run into them like at a Chinese food restaurant or at Walmart or something like that, and they're friends, and they didn't know each other the first day of class.
That impacts moving on.
Yeah, and they're hanging out. I keep seeing like the same, this group of 2 and this group of 3, and they're always together, always hanging out, taking other classes together. So I know that.
You brought them together. I don't know about the 4-year thing.
Yeah, general retention in the class for sure, and probably
Yes.
even here at Lone Star, but I mean, just igniting a passion for further learning.
We haven't done that. We haven't looked at that.
There's something that you do see as a student, and you see that your teacher is really passionate about what he or she is doing. And they really get, it's not only the students that get to put a lot into these classes, but also the teachers. I mean, you're not going to say, hey, I want to do pet dinosaurs if you're not interested in that, you know. So once you see your teachers like being really passionate about biology or sociology or English or something, you really get like, well, there's something about this, you know, and sometimes it might be something you've never seen or you never experienced, and you at least give it a shot.
I want to know, were you an extra on Twilight? You have the features, you could be an extra in Twilight. A vampire, just gone.
Are there any other questions? Well, thank you all very much.
We're looking for new people
Thank
in
you,
the
Stefano.
spring.
We'll be sending out a call soon.
Have yourselves a
What are,
refreshment.
do you know what your theme is